Good evening. Welcome to this West Orange Board of Education Public Board Meeting of February 28th, 2022. I'd like to welcome my fellow board members, our student liaison board members, Dr. Cascone and Ms. Flowers. Ms. Flowers, would you take the roll call?
Good evening, everyone. Roll call, please. Mrs. Reta,
Here.
Mr. Rock,
Here.
Mr. Stevenson,
Here.
Vice President Rothstein,
Here.
President Tunnicliffe.
Here.
Notice of meeting. Please take notice that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in the following manner. That a written notice was sent from the office of the Secretary of the Board at 4 p.m. on January 7th, 2022. That said notice was sent by regular mail to the West Orange Township Clerk and the editors of the West Orange Chronicle and the Star Ledger. That said notice was posted in the lobby of the Administration Building at the Board of Education. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to have a motion for consideration of the closed and public meetings of February 1st and 7th of 2022.
I'll motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. That was Mr. Stevenson. Thank you. Okay, so as we close out this Black History Month.
I'm sorry, Mrs. President Tunnicliffe, just a vote for the minutes.
Oh, I'm
to accept
sorry.
any-
Yes, could I have a vote? Ms. Flowers?
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mr. Rock,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Rothstein,
Yes.
President Tunnicliffe.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And now we'll go on to our student liaison reports.
Thank you. So the first thing we want to talk about is a mask mandate. We know that Governor Murphy has lifted the mandate starting March 7th and has left it to individual school districts to decide if they want to keep it or not. The district did post a survey and a lot of students have filled it out. And although we aren't aware of the official results of it, the assumption is that a plurality of students seem to support keeping the mask mandates. And this will be based off discussions that were held in classes regarding the subject and individual comments made by students. And then this, of course, could change in the future as the weather starts to warm up and it's assumed that wearing a mask would be more uncomfortable in the warm weather. And another thing we want to talk about is Black History Month. Throughout the month of February, the West Orange High School has held many events and programs to celebrate the importance of recognizing the contributions of Black Americans to our country as a whole throughout history. The Black Student Union has hosted the Black History Month Spirit Week, which has included representing the flags of one's country of origin, wearing HBCU apparel, and wearing the colors of the Pan-African flag. Additionally, the Black Student Union has hosted a lecture from activist and journalist Zeli Imani on the importance of learning history and how to bring about effective changes in one's community. Lastly, the Student Council has held a fundraiser for the West Orange High School Black History Month Scholarship Fund.
We're also proud to report that for the first time in West Orange High School history, senior Karen Knox was named the state bowling champion after bowling a perfect 300 at the New Jersey State Interscholastic Athletic Association's tournament on February 16th. We're all very proud of him for this achievement and for setting a new record at West Orange High School. Additionally, we are also extremely proud of our track team, who had not only one, but 3 state champions this weekend. Congratulations to senior Makai Green, who won the 55-meter dash, freshman Taylor Aska, who also won the 55-meter dash, and senior Olivia Prescott, who brought home gold in shot put.
Thank you, Adrian and Hiab. I appreciate that. It's always great to hear all the wonderful things our students are doing. So thanks for bringing that to our attention. And now I'd like to turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Cascone, for your report.
Thank you, President Tunnicliffe. Good evening, board members, student liaisons, Ms. Flowers, members of the community here tonight. And perhaps most importantly, we're excited to have a number of our students here in the audience tonight, both some elementary students and to be recognized for some outstanding work that they've done, and our high school students to dazzle us with their talent. We have our boys and girls step teams from the high school. And I do believe we also going to have some singing performances, which we have on the docket tonight for you as we close out the month of February and the district's recognition of Black History Month. We thought it would be an auspicious way to culminate that month with some outstanding student performances. So I will start with a student recognition, and the leaders of Girl Scout Troop 20745 reached out to me, and I was glad that they had to share the work that the girls in that troop were doing. It's always gratifying as a superintendent when you see students in your school system, going above and beyond the day-to-day curriculum and academics, and even at such a young age as fifth grade, making efforts to better their community and better their society. And in this particular case, focusing on the environment and green strategies. So tonight we have, and we're proud to recognize, Ms. Flowers, would you mind joining me at the podium? And so when I when I call your name, just like you to come up. We're going to recognize these Girl Scouts again from Troop 20745, fifth grade students. And I'm going to leave it to them to tell you about their project, which we're really excited to hear about. But first we have Miss Lucy Kukas. Come on up. Miss Lily Rubinson. Ms. Juliana Sackman. Ms. Catherine Shiflett. And Ms. Morgan Smith. Now, I understand one of you has been elected the spokeswoman for the group. Is that correct? So why don't you come around here and tell the board. You all can speak if you like. So come on over. You have cards? All right, come over here to the podium, please.
Check, 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 check. 1, 2. Check, check.
Hello, my name is Lucy Kukas, and I think we need to save our planet. Will your children and the future generations live? We need to take action now in order to save our Earth. Visit the Essex County Environmental Center or check out ecmec.info to find out how you can help.
I'd like to say that my fellow Girl Scouts and I wrote this because it was the best and most possible way to get our message across. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Kate Shiflett, and I strongly believe that everyone has the responsibility to take care of our Earth. But that could be overwhelming. So I made a website called Everyday Changes Making Earth Cooler, or ECMEC for short. You can find it at www.ecmec.info.
And members of the board, if you'd join me down in the audience as we welcome up our choir. So could we have the choir join us up here for your performance? Just a few welcoming remarks. I think it was 2 weeks ago. Come on up, folks. Was it 2 weeks ago that you had the Jubilee choir, or was that just last week? Was it just last week? Okay. All right. So, by the way, anyone in the audience, if you haven't had an opportunity to see this annual concert, this annual Jubilee concert, you're missing a real treat. I mean, it is really a crown jewel of this school district, and you obviously want to commend the students and, of course, their amazing advisors. But enough of me yammering. I'll leave it to the students to perform.
And so we have a quarter of the group here just to, sing one of the pieces. This is called Couldn't Hear Nobody Pray. James Felton is the soloist.
No, but pray, Lord. No, but pray. See, when I was way down here under by myself, Lord, no, but pray. See, oh Lord. No, but pray, Lord. No, but pray. See, when I was way down here under by myself, Lord, no, but pray. Dark was the night and cold the ground on which my Lord he was laid. Great drops of blood like sweat rolled down in agony. He prayed, see, oh Lord, nobody pray, Lord, nobody pray. See, when I was way yeah, nobody pray. Father, remove this bitter cup, if such thy sacred will, if not content to drink it up, thy pleasure I'll fulfill. See, oh Lord, yeah, nobody pray, Lord. Yeah, nobody, yeah. By myself, and I pray.
Here's the boy. Keep forgetting. I'm sorry. All right, so first the boys step two. And just to give you an idea, so each team, when they compete, they have to have a theme. And so the guys have several themes. To be honest, I don't know what theme they're doing tonight. What is this? Oh, this is the barbershop theme for the boys. That's their thing. So boys, this is absolute boys step team.
All right. So, what are we doing with this? Man, I don't know. I don't know. See, my hair is so ugly. And right here, bro, these aren't curls. These are you don't like your hair? No, bro. I hate my hair, bro. I swear. You hate your black, beautiful hair. Wow. Man, our hair is a function of who you are. Take my hair for a second. My hair is the apple. Kick back all the way back to the mother. To the land and brought to America with hairstyles just like mine. Dang. The apples came proud of some of the black front as a reflection of who we are. For example, this is me. Whoa. Do y'all see that? Y'all see that? Okay, I know y'all did. Y'all see? I know you did. Yo, I was cool and all, but you wanna help me get the ladies? Who said you wanted the ladies, eh? Of course, bro. Why did you say that? You know, wait. I'm perfect hairstyle for the ladies. Really? Yeah. Let me show you. Gather around. Ooh, Let me in the early 20th century. African Americans styled their hair with texture altering products, and waving became a popular hairstyle. Black people produced waves by brushing their hair in a desired pattern and laying it down with their do-rags. Ooh, can I do that? What? I guess, Cat. He's lying. Well, what do I have to do? First, I wash it. Wow. Number two, got conditioning. That's the most important part. You got to brush it. Okay. And brush it. 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 And wait. And brush. And brush. And brush. Okay. And wait. And brush it. And brush it. I think we got it, bro. I just think so. Just a little bit. Maybe better if I just show you, right? Yes. Rush. Smooth. Hey, brush. Okay. I think I'm starting to get it now. We'll do it together. No. I'll play. All right, so have you figured out what you want to do with this hair? Yeah. See, the story about the afro and the waves, great story. Oh yeah, but I don't think you're gonna need the wages today, bro. I mean, I can still shit. No. I'm gonna keep my head. What? You know, man, I love my hair. In fact, I love your hair. I love your hair. But yeah, hey, and I love your hair. You know what? I love your hair. And your hair. And your hair. I love this barbershop. Wait, what's the name of this barbershop? You know the name of the barbershop? No, we're at the barbershop, man. We are every barbershop. Yes, you already know the deal. We may be smooth, but don't be deceived. We're just a kid. We can't just stop. Your feet. So when the stakes are breaking, you know that I salute.
Another round of applause for Absolute. Thanks, gents. Fantastic.
So here we have the Nu Theta Omega female step team of West Orange High School. I'm the coach, Keisha Urel, as well as my co-advisor, Joanna Bernard sitting in the back. This evening, we have a special piece for you. This piece is called Say Their Name. Enjoy.
Take me to the king. I don't have much to bring. My heart is torn in pieces. It's my offering. Take me to the king. Truth is I'm tired. Options are few. I'm trying to pray, but where are you? I'm all churched out, hurt and abused. I can't pray what's left to do. Truth is I'm weak, no strength to fight, no tears to cry. Even if I try, but still my soul refuses to die. Mhm. One touch will change my life. Take me to the king. I don't have much to bring. My heart is torn in pieces. It's my offering. Lay me at the throne. Leave me there alone to gaze upon your glory and sing to you
again, another big round of applause for all our performers tonight and their advisors. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for bringing in just, it couldn't have been a better culmination to our celebration of Black history. We're so proud of you, young ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being strong. And thank you for making the future bright for all of us. Have a great night. And feel free to stay, please. Feel free to stay for the excitement of the district calendar, or by all means, feel free to take your leave and get home. Board, if you join us at the dais again. Thank you. Student liaisons. Well, that's going to be a tough act to follow. We talk about anticlimactic. Here we go. I will do my best to make the remainder of the superintendent's report exciting for you. But wow, I mean, that's just amazing stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay, so just want to speak briefly about the 2022-23 district calendar. It is on the agenda for approval. It is fairly straightforward. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but I don't know if the board had any questions with regard to the district calendar on which you will be voting later. All set? Okay. The HIB self-assessment. So school districts are required on an annual basis. Each school is required to go through a self-assessment process with regard to their HIB procedures and processes. Of course, HIB is the harassment, intimidation, and bullying. There's a statute and corresponding board policies, and the schools go through this evaluation on an annual basis. And basically, they take stock of a number of things. I won't go into detail on all of them, but essentially, the extent to which they are in compliance with the various procedural steps, training, having the appropriate personnel in place to execute those policies and those procedures. On tonight's board agenda, the evaluation scores for each of the schools are presented to you for your approval. There is a maximum score of 78, and you can see each school's score accordingly. Schools have been doing this, annually since the inception of the statute. You don't typically see a lot of flux from year to year in those scores. One area in which you tend to see a fair amount of self-reflection on the part of schools in the area of training. We do really, I would say, an outstanding job of training our full-time staff, but we can always get a little bit better and a little bit more consistent in terms of how we are ensuring regular and updated training for staff who are coming in on part-time basis, where there's a bit more transients, whether it's cafeteria workers, bus drivers, and things of that nature. So that is an area where we continue to look to improve upon the consistency and the rigor of our trainings, in order that all staff members are as equally trained and capable and knowledgeable of the statute as are, our certificated staff and full-time folks. So I don't know if the board had any questions about the self-assessment, the HIB self-assessment. Okay, you're just still thinking about the performance. Fantastic. I have to do this more often. Continuing along, there is an HIB report for your consideration. I can certify that I have reviewed the executive summaries of all of those incidents presently. Have I distributed those to you?
No.
Indeed. I suppose you will need to see those. full disclosure, I'll call attention to the fact that I'm wearing reading glasses with one arm on them. Okay, I lost my other pair, so here you are. I'm going to call it out. Okay, so we have for your consideration for this particular meeting, we have 4 incidents that were reported and investigated. 2 were confirmed as not HIB, and 2 were confirmed as being violations of the HIB policy. Again, I have reviewed the executive summaries of all those cases and concurred with the findings and dispositions as reported. Get any questions about any of the incidents as they appear on the summary? Okay. And last but certainly not least, thank you, members of the board. It would be just a public health update, and our student liaison Baharam sort of provided a sort of a segue into that earlier in his report. As you know, Governor Murphy loosened the mask mandate in schools as of March 7th. School districts were authorized to set their own policies insofar as masking. The district, as we have throughout this pandemic, have gone about our decision-making in a very measured, deliberate manner, through which we've been able to gather feedback from our stakeholders, to confer substantially with medical and public health authorities and experts. And in this particular case, the several weeks that we've had since that notice came out from the governor, we've had an opportunity to allow the national and state level public health authorities to issue revised guidelines in the wake of the governor's announcement. And the governor's announcement, some might consider obviously it was a decision rendered by a legislative figure, a political figure. But of course, we were eager to see what the public health experts promulgated in the wake of the governor's announcement. And so we are, as of March 7th, going to exercise an optional mask policy, but with conditions. And that is what we've seen is our level of community transmission is now in the green. We are in the low rate of transmission in the Northeast region, according to the Cali Index. And provided that our community stays in either the low or moderate ranges of risk, we will maintain the optional policy. We will monitor that Cali Index on a weekly basis. It is released typically late Thursday, early Friday morning on a weekly basis to determine where we are within that risk range. And if the community were to elevate back into either the high or the highest levels of transmission, we would go back to a mandatory mask policy. I will tell you that we did confer with both our district physician and local Department of Health, and both entities, deemed this course of action prudent and appropriate based upon the current level of transmission. The survey was distributed really to give us an insight into kind of generally speaking where our very different stakeholders felt on the matter. I will tell you that as far as students, just because Bahram mentioned it, we had of the students surveyed, we had 42.9% indicated that they would prefer to keep masks mandatory through the end of the year. About an equal number of folks, students, indicated to no longer require masks, and 14.3% concurred with the approach that the district is taking, which is to have it predicated on the level of transmission. One final point is, and of course, that won't be the final point because I never do that. But one additional point would be that previously the CDC had removed that mask mandate from buses, but the State Department of Health had yet to do that. Today, we received word from the State Department of Health that they are in fact aligning with the CDC's previously revised guidance for school buses, making masks optional on school buses. We have a little work to do this week in drilling down on our quarantining procedures, our contact tracing procedures with our school nursing staff, with our building principals to understand any implications on those. And we will provide follow-up communication on that towards the end of this week. One final piece, and this is really the final piece, is, and I mentioned this in a community letter, which has actually been disseminated about now. It's been going out to the community, communicating the district's position. Is that this is really a time for us to be respectful and understanding of different people's positions on this. And it hasn't always necessarily been something, and not so much in West Orange, but certainly on maybe a national scale or what have you, where we haven't really necessarily been insightful about understanding and empathetic about other people's perspectives and positions. We will have, as noted in the survey, a sizable number of folks who will continue to wear masks in school, and that is absolutely fine. And they should feel absolutely comfortable doing that. Our schools will continue to be places where people can feel comfortable with their choices. I can tell you that in tomorrow's principals meetings, I will be addressing that with principals to make sure that we are messaging, as I stated in my letter, assertively to students about being respectful to others about their choices, whether that's wearing them or not. And finally, is that we have a very large inventory of N95 masks, which we received from our partners in the state and the county. And so any staff members, any students who may not be able to procure an N95 mask and feel more comfortable with that, those are absolutely available to them. And whether it's parents or guardians reaching out to the school or students reaching out directly, if they felt comfortable to their guidance counselor or their school administrator, we have ample supply of those if folks felt more comfortable wearing an N95. And that is all I have on that. And I'm certainly open to receive questions from the board and our student liaisons for that matter. Yeah.
Mr. Rock?
Thank you, President Tunnicliffe. Just one question. So you indicated that on a weekly basis, we'd look at that Cali score to see if and when the district would go back to a mask mandatory policy. Looking at the history of the last 2 years, we can assume at some point there'll be something that causes an uptick and that would be necessary. The problem with the Cali score, though, is that it's a lagging indicator. It comes out a week after and the data is from a week before. So is there something we can look, and maybe you don't have an answer today, maybe this is something we have to talk about over the next few months, but is there something we can look to that's a more timely indicator of when we would need to transition back to a mask mandatory policy?
It's an excellent point, and I appreciate Mr. Rocket shared that, and it's an astute observation. And as we're entering into a downward trend in cases, one could argue, as we had discussed, that the Cali score is an even more appropriate measure, because we know that if it's green today, that trend has been continuing for some time. Problem is when it starts to go up, as you stated, we sort of get that information late. It's absolutely a question that I will bring forth to the Department of Health. I think if we look at the last 2 years and the way the cases have trended, I think we will continue to see the cases decline over the course of the spring and as we move into the summer months. But in advance of as we saw, in the fall over the course of the last 2 years, typically around October, and then of course in November it spikes up. So in advance of that, we absolutely should do a little bit more research on that. Obviously hopeful that perhaps we'll get some guidance because, I will note, Mr. Rock, that, school districts were given the authorization to use their own discretion and also left to their own devices to work with local public health experts to come up with an approach that made sense for their community and a metric that made sense. But it's an excellent point, definitely one that we need to drill down further before that next uptick.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Stevenson, any questions?
No questions, President Tunnicliffe.
Ms. Huerta?
More of a comment. I do want the community to know that I hope that we're all still being responsible and, following the guidance of staying masked when we're in close proximity to other people. I've seen a pattern of inconsistency in mask wearing, whether that's indoors or outdoors, whether that's in town events and in school events. And it's just been an impossible task to, mandate masks, right? And to ensure that. And reinforce that. So I do think that encouraging masks, continuing to encourage masks, yes, that it's optional now for those that are uncomfortable with it for whatever reason, now have the option to not wear it. However, we're not really over the pandemic and we don't want to risk increasing cases. So I think that although the recommendation is optional, to still encourage whenever we are in closed spaces and indoors to have the masks on. It's going to just make things more difficult in terms of contact tracing, school closures and all of those things. So that's just my recommendation, just to, yes, it's optional, but continuing to encourage the community to stay safe as possible.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. Vice President Rothstein?
Yes, thank you. Excuse me. I'm glad that we're doing this. It's been a crazy couple of years, and I think that this is a difficult thing for a lot of us to come to terms with. But I think this is the right decision, and I think the guidance that we're seeing supports the decision. I'm grateful to the administration for making the N95s available. Who should students and staff go to if they want to request that?
I think if we're talking about, certainly we're talking about high school students, who are middle school students who are old enough, feel comfortable self-advocating. I think they could reach out directly to the building principal, certainly on the middle school and high school level. If we're talking about younger students, parents, our doors are open. Parents can reach out to principals is probably the best way.
Okay.
And we'll get them in touch with the masks for sure.
You mentioned that we have a large supply. If that supply dwindles, do we have the means to purchase more and keep that going for some time?
Sure. As part of our ARP grant, the ESSER 3 grant, we have a line in that, an allocation in that's partially used for PPE so that we can re-up that in advance of next school year. I'm not expecting that we would deplete that supply for this year because it's pallets worth, thousands of them. So we're in good shape for this year, I would imagine.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you. And last question. Again, I know it's going to take some time to get our heads around a lot of this, but in terms of the timing of when it seems to be the right thing to remask in schools, we know that there's certainly the indicators, the science-based data-driven indicators, but then I'm also wondering about times that there might not be as much evidence, but they sort of feel like appropriate times, like returning from a long vacation, that kind of thing. Will we have the latitude to make decisions based on that type of situation? Or is it, by the guidelines that have put out exclusively by the Department of Health?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, one of the benefits of the fact that the discretion has been put in the hands of the local school district is that, a school district and administration in partnership with the Department of Health can make pivots and adjustments to that at any time if deemed necessary and appropriate.
All right, lots to consider. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you.
President Tony,
Yes,
just one quick question about
certainly.
your letter to the community, Dr. Cascone, and just in terms of instructional practice and really kind of managing the mask optional policy with respect to counseling for students, potential avoidance of bullying in the school properties. Is that addressed and has been addressed with the staff with respect to being able to accommodate those students who may express issues with respect to the bullying or the peer effects of a community which some may be masked and others may not be?
Yeah. So, tomorrow I'll be meeting with all of our principals, elementary, middle, and high school principals, and that is squarely on the agenda for discussion. I think it was at the last meeting that we had a member of the community come up and speak to, this premise of trauma, right? And so We know that this pandemic has impacted different people in different ways. Some people have been impacted terribly by it, others not so much, and everyone brings different experiences to the table. And, you know, different students and staff may be feeling differently about, you know, what this means as a changed reality. And so again, just kind of, you know, bringing empathy to the table, you know, speaking to our student counselors and understanding and letting parents know that our doors are open to people to work through that, you know, kind of like we have for the last couple of years. But it will be reiterated very specifically, and we'll have a pretty in-depth conversation about it tomorrow with the principals.
Thank you, sir. I just think it's important that we have events communication with respect to the respect for an individual family's choice with respect to masking, given that we're going mask optional while we're still working through some of the applications of how we're going to react to contact tracing and quarantining. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, Mr. Stevenson, agreed.
Great. Thank you so much. We are now on to.
President Tunnicliffe, I don't know, I
Yes.
apologize. I don't know if the student if you
Oh,
wanted to.
sorry. Did you have any?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So now we're on to the questions from the public on agenda items only at this point. There'll be time later in the meeting for questions not on the agenda. So if anyone has anything to say, they can approach the lectern. And you have 3 minutes to, which Ms. Flowers will time. Nope. Seeing no questions.
President Tunnicliffe, I do have some submissions through the Google form. The first submission is from Ms. Felice Flitt, 55 Bolin Drive. I see the proposed calendar is on the agenda for approval. I noticed that the date to return from winter break is January 1st, New Year's Day. That would mean that none of the teachers or students can reasonably stay up to watch the ball drop and be up and alert to spend a full day in school. Second submission is from Ms. Ms. Anna Becker, 127 Old Short Hills Road, Apartment 1. I'm sorry, omit that one. That is a non-agenda item. For agenda item, I have Ms. Sandra Mordecai. Good evening. Thank you for your service. I'm wondering if the interim superintendent position was posted internally and how many applications received. Also, I am surprised that the posting window was 10 days. Thank you. That completes the Google form.
Thank you, Ms. Flowers. You want to? Sure.
If you had anything to add, I'll start and then, yeah. So thank you, Ms. Flitt. You know, that error was picked up and the calendar has been subsequently corrected. So the revised attachment has been posted, and when the calendar is disseminated to the community tomorrow and posted, you'll notice that that correction has been made. So thank you for that. With respect to the interim superintendent posting, yes, it was posted internally. We received no internal applications for the position. And in terms of the 10-day posting, you know, I would probably defer to, I'm happy to lend my own insight, but I don't know, President Tunnicliffe, did you want to speak to that at all, or?
Sure. I think, you know, we've been fortunate to have Dr. Vespignani at the helm of our HR department. And I had full confidence in him that we posted the position for the length of time that was necessary, and we were able to find a very qualified candidate. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think you handled that
Okay. Thank you.
fabulously. Actually, I apologize, President Tunnicliffe. No, I just received, I received some intel from our director of personnel. It was actually posted for 14 days.
Oh, that's right. Yes. So would you like to comment on that?
I actually did bring that up, and Dr. Vispignani, I'm sorry, Dr. Vispignani did reassure me that 10 to 15 days is the average time that most postings are set up, and yes, so just echoing what President Tunnicliffe said.
All right, now I have an add-on. As Ms. Huerta reminded me that I did have a conversation with Dr. Vespignani about the length of time postings were out there. And I had said, you know, some organizations do post for the duration until the position is actually filled. And we talked about that a bit, and he said he didn't feel that that was, you know, he realizes some do that, but he didn't think that there was a huge benefit to having it open longer for a longer time frame until the position was actually filled. And I was comfortable with that response.
That's all, Ms. Flowers?
Yes, that's all. the
Okay,
submissions I
very
have
good.
for-
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, board reports. So we will start with legislation, because I know there's a lot of going on down in Trenton lately. So
Seniority came that I didn't have to go first anymore,
Oh,
but it's
sorry.
fine. I'm just joking. I'm used to it by now, so I will go first. So we did have a lot of legislation pass through. One of the most important that affects us in the immediate is the legislation to postpone or delay the delivery of the governor's budget message for the fiscal year 2023 or 2023, sorry. So this delay pushes the budget speech to Tuesday, March 8th. And so what this does for us, basically the delay in the delivery of the budget message will also postpone the state aid notification to the district, which will affect various local school district deadlines. So in the past years, when the governor's budget was delayed, the Department of Education also extended several key dates related to the development and approval of the school district's budget. It is anticipated that the department will issue a revised budget calendar, which I believe is already available for us, for the school districts now that the state budget message has been delayed. And so we will be having a special budget hearing on Thursday evening. So to get more information on what's going on with that, please join us for that. The next piece of legislation that also passed, which I thought would be important for our school district, is the establishment of a school funding formula evaluation task force. The 7-member task force would be charged with studying, evaluating, and assessing the current state school funding formula. 6 public members will be appointed by legislative leadership, 2 each by the presiding officers of each house, and 1 by each minority leader. The 7th will be a representative from the New Jersey Department of Education. So the task force will study the effectiveness of and provide recommendations on potentially improving various aspects of the formula. Another piece of legislation, S 904, extends the period of time for filing special education due process petitions related to COVID-19 closures and periods of virtual, remote, hybrid, or in-person instruction. So this legislation essentially extends the time to file a petition up to approximately 18 months, depending on the date the party knew or should have known. The next piece of legislation that is sorry, just give me one second. S464 revises the conditions for the use of virtual or remote instruction to include closures due to inclement weather regardless of duration. So the current law only allows for virtual instruction after 3 days. The bill was passed unanimously by the Senate Education Committee on February 3rd and is currently on the 2nd reading in the Senate. So given our frequent use of emergency days, this is of particular relevance, although it would likely not have any impact until next school year. So I thought that was very important for us, as we have already used our emergency snow days this year for school closures. S904, this one eliminates the residency requirement, which currently requires all public school employees to live in New Jersey for a period of 3 years. This bill was passed unanimously by the Senate Education Committee on February 3rd and is currently on second reading in the Senate. AJR 59 recognizes February 28th as Amistad Day in recognition of the importance of the Amistad case to the abolishment movement in the United States. The joint resolution passed the Assembly unanimously this morning. S108 and A169 signed into law. This law, also called the New Voices Law, protects the rights of the student journalists and sets very clear and limited criteria for censorship of student publications by school officials. The law also requires the school districts adopt a written policy about freedom of expression for students by the next school year. We didn't see any, so I guess these are Brian's notes right here. So we're on the legislative committee together. So he said he looked through the policy manual and did not see any familiar policy. So policy committee might be receiving an alert about that soon. I think the last piece. The committee approves food insecurity package. This includes 10 bills that are designed to fight hunger and reduce food insecurity among New Jersey residents. A couple of the things that stuck out to me was the costs associated with expanding the availability of free school meals would be borne by the state to avoid imposing any more unfunded mandates on the districts. So there's more to come on those bills and the progress on those. That's all for me.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rock, are you going to give the town council update? Okay, great.
Just to add on to the legislative, a little known fact, I was a student journalist when I was in high school. So it's part of why I added that on there. When I was your age, I was one of the editors. But so the town council liaison report, February 15th, we met via Google Meet, and in attendance was board member Huerta, myself, Councilwoman Castellino, and Superintendent Cascone. 5 items on the agenda we discussed. First, Dr. Cascone wanted to set up a walkthrough of the 10 Rooney property, and a meeting was set up to arrange that. Second, we spent a considerable amount of time discussing various sites that might be possible to use for a preschool expansion. We know that one of the goals of the district is to get the pre-K expansion grant. That'll eventually require a bigger property for what we have once the lease for the current property expires in a few years. So we went through a long list of possible places in town and possible options. And I think we'll have further discussions about that. We also discussed the state of sidewalks and incomplete sidewalks throughout town and the impact that has on hazardous routes and the busing needs of the district. Councilwoman Castellino indicated that slowly the town has been adding sidewalks throughout, but it's a gradual process. There's a variety of grants that can be applied to this, but it's kind of piecemeal. So we decided to continue to discuss options to improve that over time. Councilwoman Castellino brought up the garbage contract. The town is due to renew their contract and wanted to explore whether or not it was possible for us to do a joint contract, the shared services between the district and the town in order to save money. So a meeting was set up to discuss that. And then Councilwoman Castellino also wanted to ensure that we have a smooth transition to the next interim superintendent when it comes to use of facilities and make sure that various recreation department activities and town activities can continue to happen on board property. So there's going to be a meeting between municipal and district employees to make sure that that continues. We do have a meeting set up for March 23rd to continue our liaising.
Excellent. Sounds like a productive meeting. Thank you so much. Vice President Rothstein, anything on policy? I know you met recently.
Yeah, always something on policy. So I'll speak on behalf of the policy committee this week, and Mr. Stevenson and I flipped a coin and I lost. So we'll flip again next week or next meeting. So we did have a meeting. The policy committee met on February 16th, and we forwarded you the minutes from the meeting. Dr. Cascone and Mr. Stevenson and myself met. We reviewed a number of things, including access to the current policies on the Board of Education website and the archiving of the previous policies for reference for all board members. We also discussed a process for updating policies in 2022. Mrs. Huerta, thank you for the alert to be on the alert for an alert, and we will be. And let's see, we also discussed, I think that I inadvertently left off some notes here, but one of the other things that we discussed was the potential for some revisions to policies that had already been adopted based on notes that the previous board had left for ourselves about policies that we might want to revisit. And so just wanted to let the other members of the board know that has not disappeared. That's an ongoing process. And as Mr. Stevenson and I move through all of those notes, we'll be reporting out on our recommendations for which ones to move forward on with changes and which ones we think might be best to let sit. But of course, it's a collaborative effort. So we'll all decide how to move forward from there. And the last thing is just to schedule a next meeting to deal with the to address the policies that are coming in from Strauss Esme that will require revisions. And so we'll set up that meeting soon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We were not able to schedule a PER meeting this last month in February, but we will be scheduling that in March. So we should have an update towards the end of March on that. And we are going to be, for negotiations, Mr. Stevenson and I are going to be working with the WOAA as the contract will be up in June. So we are working on scheduling that meeting and getting that on the calendar to begin that process. So that is where we are at. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Mr. Stevenson?
With respect to negotiations? No.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't want to leave you out.
Well, thank you, President Tunnicliffe. I appreciate that. I just want to say, if I can, very briefly, I really appreciate the students and their performances tonight. Powerful presentations. I also want to acknowledge Ms. Catherine Connors, and the West Orange High School Student Council for recognizing me during Black History Month. Completely humbled by that recognition, and in many ways unworthy of it, given the levels of people you recognize. So thank you for that. I think that what the students displayed tonight and what we see in our community are students who are proud to be who they are. And I think that's really important, really valuable. There was a time where Black history was not celebrated in the manner in which it probably should have been. And I think as we continue to emerge as a community and respect who we are as a community, we will continue to affirm ourselves in an unashamed way and continue to represent ourselves adequately. So thank you so much for that recognition of me and for your presentation to the community.
Thank you so much. I did want to make one other comment. One of the things that the board is trying to do is formalize a little bit more the committee work that we do. And I'm going to be working with our administration to create sets of minutes that will be able to be found on our board website under the board tab of the work we do, so that folks who do not come to the meetings regularly are able to go there and get a summary of what's going on at a deeper level, because there is a lot of work, as you can hear, that goes on outside of the meetings here in committee work. And even though we function as a board of the whole, it does take a number of hours to do all of the work that we need to do for our district. So I did want you to be aware of that, and that should be coming soon, hopefully in March, I hope. So, okay, and I think that concludes our board committee reports. And I'd like to move on to personnel if there's nothing else. So for personnel, I would like to take this in two sections. I would like to have a motion to approve sections 1 through 6. And if I could get a motion
So
for that.
moved.
Thank you. That was Mr. Rock or, oh, Mr. Stevenson, sorry. A second?
I'll second.
Great. Would like to just recognize two longtime folks who are retiring this month. We have Paul Atzma, who is retiring from social studies teaching at Roosevelt from 29 years in service. And so we thank him for that. And we're also, Ms. Quanda Bryant is also retiring as a basic skills instructor in Gregory, and she has 21 years. So congratulations to both of you, and we wish you well on your retirements. Any other comments from anyone? Discussion items? I did actually have two items. I just wanted to, for the community's edification, if you could just perhaps give a little explanation, as we see a couple folks under the, let's see, which number is this? This is under appointments, under section A, that are listed twice. Could you just kind of give us a little bit of information about that? Or
Allow me to put my broken glasses on. Bear with me one moment.
Yep.
Which section, President Tunnicliffe? I apologize.
Yes, thank you.
Right. So this was an example where when Ms. Louie was, so there's two motions there. One is an amendment. You're welcome. Thank you. One is an amendment to her original capacity in which she was covering as a substitute. You can see that it was amended. Originally, she was going to be serving in that capacity until March 1st. So there's an amendment to that, as she was basically installed as a full-time tenure track position effective February 9th. Is that the one you were?
Yes, that one. Okay. And Ms. Pizzuta?
Right.
Same situation?
Yeah, exactly. Same situation. Was serving in that substitute role and ended up being moved into the full-time tenure track role earlier than expected and starts in that 2/9.
Great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And I was very excited to see that we are also hiring a good cadre of substitute teachers. So that's much needed. So good work on finding those folks and getting them on the agenda for us to approve. So anyone else?
I actually did want to address item number 6. And Doc, I know you answered this in an email, but I would just like a little more clarification for the public. Superintendent.
That's the IT support
IT specialist? Yeah,
Yes.
sure. Thank you for that question, Ms. Huertas. So there has been a lot going on in the technology department. A lot of lifting, just the day-to-day, but also with the thousands of devices which the district has procured through the emergency connectivity fund, and really just the pivoting back and forth for students between virtual. We've been incurring a lot of overtime for our technology staff, and so this was really a cost savings measure as opposed to continuing to pay out an inordinate amount of overtime. Would be to actually we would save money by actually hiring a full-time staff member. I should note that that position is funded entirely out of the ARP grant. And it is a short-term position, meaning that it'll be funded for the lifespan of the ARP grant. And when that grant is exhausted, the position will be eliminated. And the projection is that at that time, we'll be back to more normal circumstances where there will not be as much overtime.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Rock, anything to add? Mr. Stevenson?
No.
Okay. Vice President? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, can we have a vote? Ms. Flowers, thank you.
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mr. Rock,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Rothstein,
Yes.
President Tunnicliffe.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. And Another important event tonight is item number 7 on our agenda, and this is our resolution to approve a contract for the interim superintendent of schools. Resolved that the board approve a contract of employment for Dr. C. Lauren Schoen, effective the period of March 1st, 2022 through October 31st, 2022, which has been reviewed and approved by the county executive superintendent in accordance with NJAC 6A 23A-3.1. I would like to have a motion.
Yes, so moved.
Vice President Rothstein, thank you. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. Can I vote first?
Discussion.
Any discussion? Well, I would like to be the first to say welcome aboard. And Dr. Schoen, would you like to come up and introduce yourself to our community? No.
My original intention was to say thank you. That I am so looking forward to being part of this community and the opportunity to work with the outstanding staff and student body. That's how I was going to start, which I guess I just did. But I am mesmerized by what I saw with the students here today. And I think that you said it beautifully, Mr. Stevenson. They were proud of who they are, and I'm equally as proud to be able to be a part of their world with them as we move forward looking for a permanent superintendent. So I want to thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Rock? Mr. Stevenson?
No.
Ms. Huerta?
No, other than I'm very excited to, get beyond this road with you, Dr. Schoen, and very grateful to Dr. Cascone for bringing us this far.
Vice President Rothstein?
Yeah, just really looking forward to working with you. Very glad you're here.
Same here. Can we vote? Ms. Flowers?
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mr. Rock,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Rothstein,
Yes.
President Tunnicliff.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. And congratulations and welcome on board. We're delighted to have you and we're looking forward to working with you.
President Tunnicliff?
Yes.
I don't know if did you want me to speak a little bit about just the transition?
Yes.
Just for the public?
Thank you.
So Dr. Schoen will be coming on board tomorrow. And we've already begun. Dr. Schoen's provided me with a very comprehensive list of documents, information, individuals with whom she would like to meet. And so we're already in the process of compiling that. She'll be engaging in one-on-one meetings with all administrators. We'll be touring the facilities over the next couple of weeks to ensure that she has all the information that she needs to comfortably and confidently take controls. And presently it would appear that my last board meeting here in West Orange will be the 14th of March, with my last day shortly thereafter. If you'll humor me just a moment further, I just want to piggyback on Dr. Schoen's comments. Both when I was at the Jubilee concert and then again watching the students again perform today, I was again left with the impression of how greatly I will miss this community and the students. It is truly an exceptional community and very much to be proud of. So welcome, Dr. Schoen. I look forward to working with you in the next couple of weeks. Thank you, President Tunnicliff.
Thank you. And onward to curriculum and instruction. So I believe we can approve these all at once. Let me just see. So that'd be items 1 through 4. Actually, I might do 1 through 3 because I think we both, Ms. Huerta and I, had some questions on the English language learners. So if we could do, if that's okay with you, Ms. Flowers?
That's perfectly fine.
Perfect. Okay. Could I have a motion to approve items 1 through 3 under the curriculum and instruction?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Rock. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. We can vote.
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mr. Rock,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Rothstein,
Yes.
President Tunnicliff.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, and then could I have a motion for approval and acceptance of the recommendation for the New Jersey Department of Education English Language Learners 3-year plan?
Yes, so moved.
Thank you, Vice President Roster. No, you're fine. Second, please.
Second.
And that was Mr. Stevenson. Thank you so much. Discussion.
Shall I go first?
I'm going to call Felix Plata.
Oh, wonderful. What? Uh-oh.
I think, yeah, numbered or something. I'm like.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to show Mr. Plata how much I know about the ESL program, and he's going to bail me out if I get anything wrong. So we're happy. No, we listen, we appreciated, I appreciated, the board members asked some outstanding questions about this, and we appreciate it because it demonstrates that you're going through it with a fine tooth comb, which is important. So Mr. Plata, appreciate you being here tonight, and we're happy to answer any questions the board has about the 3-year plan. Mr. Plata, why don't you just start and give us a real high level of what this is, its purpose, and then, we'll turn it over to questions at the board.
Sure, sure. Is it okay if I take this off?
Absolutely.
I just would like to reiterate what Dr. Cascone said. Thank you for the questions. It does show the interest. It shows the value that the board places on the ELL community and our multilingual learners. And I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. And this community has welcomed me in this role. And one of the things that attracted me to West Orange 4 years ago was that has been the case all along. So thank you for your interest, and hopefully I can answer all your questions to the best of my ability. The New Jersey Department of Education this is a new 3-year plan that the NJDOE has developed. They completely restructured the plan, everything to the format of it, from the format of it to the manner in which it was completed, the purpose, and the way that they collect the information. The 3-year plan, the way it was expressed during our meetings with the NJDOE, is more of a tool that's being used by districts or by the state for the districts to use to reflect upon the programs that we implement in the state of New Jersey, to evaluate, think about questions, and the most important aspect of it, which they clearly expressed, was for it to be completed by more than just the ELL supervisor or whoever is functioning in that role or that capacity for the district. So the plan is a list of about, as you saw, of about 100 questions that are, again, meant for us to reflect upon, think about, answer. The state did also create the format so that they can collect data so that they can also be more informed as to what's going on in the state of New Jersey regarding ELLs. So the questions were questions that we had to reflect upon for how we are functioning and working with our ELLs over the past 3 years. Now, these past 3 years have been an incredible past 3 years, specifically the last 2 years, obviously. So it was a valuable tool from that perspective for me to reflect where we had our strengths. Also, the data points that we used, some of the data points were from the last time that we had state assessments, which was 18-19. Also, the access test scores, which we did do last year. So we did have some data from last year. So it really was a great tool for us to really have those conversations. So that's basically the overall purpose and the design of the plan. I find it a little awkward to call it a plan because it really isn't a plan. It's more of a tool to help us to develop our plans for the next 3 years, next year and beyond that.
Thank you, Mr. Plata.
You want me to start? Okay. So one of the questions that I had as after looking through the plan was about the funding that we allocate. Do we know precisely how much funding, and this may be directed more towards Ms. Flowers, but perhaps you know as well, for this particular 3-year plan?
So the funding, we do use specifically Title III funding. Typically, we get Title III and then Title III immigrant funds. Title III immigrant funds tend to be every other year for some reason, the way the state does their calculations, that's just seems to be the way the pattern has worked the last 4 years. I don't have the number off the top of my head right now that we have for Title III and Title III immigrant. And then we obviously use local funds, which I can't really say how we would target those funds specifically for ELLs, because our ELLs are in general ed classrooms receiving services. So, I would have to get back to you regarding specifically how you're asking the question and to be able to get you an accurate number.
Mr. Plata, how many ESL teachers do we have district-wide?
So district-wide, we have currently 15 ESL teachers. There's 3 at the high school, 3 at the middle school level, which includes 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then 9 at the elementary level.
So that would be the lion's share of your local investment,
Okay.
not including, curricular resources. And then the grant funds are as supplements to the local funding.
Okay, thank you so much. And then I wanted to know, because we have the Rutgers UBHC program with the parent liaison, does this dovetail? Is there a dovetail there with this 3-year plan?
Yes, it's not specifically addressed or asked about in the question, in the question format, but it absolutely, and it's been especially these past 2 years, has been an incredible asset. The services that the parent liaison has been using have ranged from in-classroom visits, supports to families regarding all kinds of things that have been happening for the past 2 years. Parent workshops that we've had with families, individual calls that the liaison has been receiving in the evenings, during the day. So it has been a strong part of what we would like to see for the next 3 years.
That's great.
And it's been incredibly valuable, again, just to
Yeah.
reiterate that.
I hope we can continue that.
Yeah.
That sounds wonderful. And then the other piece that I was curious about was the family engagement in student learning and achievement. It talks about that, and I'm just trying to find my question in here. I had so much stuff.
The advisory piece, like the
yes.
parent advisory piece?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it talked about the parent advisory committee, and I think both Ms. Huerta and I wanted to know who's on that committee and how they were selected. Is there anything? Yeah.
Okay, so the parent advisory committee is made up, it's the bilingual parent advisory committee, and it's made up of ESL parents of English language learners. We have an administrator on the committee. The parent liaison is part of that committee as well, myself. And then we have community members who are also serving as translators to facilitate the communication. Most of the meetings that we have are conducted in Spanish and Haitian Creole, since those are the 2 predominant languages. The way that we recruited members to that, we reached out specifically to the families of our English language learners through email, through phone calls. Again, the parent liaison has been a great asset, making those phone calls. And then through our ESL teachers as well, who have those more intimate relationships with our parents.
I guess one follow-up question.
Please.
Because I did have one question about that parent advisory committee too. I noticed student delegate was one of the options. It seems a little strange for the parent advisory committee, but our student delegates to the board are really helpful for us to understand the student perspectives. I wondered if we had thought about or had any plans to incorporate the student perspective, whether in that parent advisory committee or in another way, to make sure that their feedback is getting back to you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually, when I was going through these questions, I had the same reaction. I said, you know what, we might, that makes a lot of sense. So yes, that is the intent now to include some student representation on that advisory committee, even if it's a separate type of meeting because of the schedules. So yes, that is part of our plan now.
Thank you.
Question. Do you want to add to any of the questions you had?
Sure. So one of the questions that I noticed was the input from the parent advisory committees in terms of the LIEP types that we select. We answered, which is give some more input
Sure,
on that.
sure. I can, and if I don't answer specifically, just
Yeah.
feel free to shoot out another question.
Sure.
So the LIEP type. So what that means, what an LIEP type is, by code, all districts in the state of New Jersey that have more than 20 English language learners of a particular language group are required by code to offer full-time bilingual programs. Districts are, depending on their circumstances, are able to apply for a waiver, and then there's a list of different language programs that they can offer. There are various levels of bilingual education, and then there's ESL only, and then various levels depending on the number of ELLs you have in your district of ESL that you can offer. You can offer just ESL, ESL combined with sheltered English instruction, high intensity ESL. So there's a list of different LIEPs that are defined by the state, by the NJDOE, that we can select from. West Orange has had, but in the plan, I indicated high intensity ESL in addition to sheltered English instruction. Now, in terms of the question, do we get input from our bilingual parent advisory committee regarding the selection of one of those types of programs? This was another moment where, in reflecting upon all these questions over the past 3 years, the reality is we hadn't. There were quite a number of other topics that were of high interest of our advisory group committee, especially again over the last 2 years. A lot of our discussions and conversations and questions was, well, primarily what's going on. A lot of the communications that Dr. Gascon was great. Mr. Mendez also was great in meeting with our ELL community. But with all of the changes and the pivots and the things that were occurring, a lot of the topics were specifically around more sharing with them what's happening in terms of the decision making that's happening at the upper administration and with the board. So those took a lot of topics. And then when we received input from them, it was input in terms of, how can we best help you, your families, and your children in succeeding. And that's what drove many of our meetings, in addition to the other workshops or parent meetings that we had. Some of those parent meetings included the Power School, the report card, since there was a change in the report card. They wanted understanding how to, what did that mean? And there were a variety, and then obviously all the pivots that occurred with COVID and the like. So it was a point when I saw that question, you know what, we did not discuss specifically the LIEP types of programs and get their input on what they thought would best meet their children's needs. So yes, we will in our next meeting, we are going to bring that up and have that as a topic of conversation.
Thank you very much. That's something that I feel like will benefit our students more. And I've been discussing, I've mentioned before to the board as well about dual language programs or bilingual classes and things like that. Won't just benefit the the English learners, but it will also benefit the English speaking community because it will add that extra concept of understanding a different language. So one thing that came about,
I'm sorry, you just remind me of something else. Now, while we have not formally adopted a bilingual program as defined by the NJDOE, we have through our trainings, which we do have another sheltered English instruction training coming up for our non-ESL certified teachers. We've been promoting and really explaining what the benefit is to native language support, native language instruction, that native language literacy, which is so valuable and facilitates the transfer of all that they learn into English and their advancement in academically when all the state assessments are typically in English. In addition, I have been working with other supervisors and they've been fantastic with providing native language supports in terms of the math series, if it comes in Spanish, and there are certain students that would benefit it because they are new to the country, new to our system. We are purchasing some native language materials to support those students and the families, especially to support their children in learning the content. And I'd have to say our staff, even though the vast majority are not bilingual, but they have been more than receptive to requesting those materials for their individual pockets of students who they feel it would benefit. And in fact, today I just received another email from a teacher who has a new student and is requesting just what I'm describing. So, you know, we don't have a formal bilingual program, which I think I've expressed where my personal stance is on the matter, bilingual education and the benefits of it. But we are implementing certain practices that can support that native language to help them facilitate that transfer of knowledge and skills when they're performing in English.
Thank you. That sounds great. And then kind of segues a little bit into the next question that I had, or more of a comment. I did see that some of our students have received the state seal of biliteracy in the district, and I thought that that was a fabulous thing for a student to aspire to, and just for us to encourage that and just to highlight those students.
Yes, I mean, this is how I love these questions. You are promoting our program like anything better than I've done in the past 4 years. But yes, the seal of biliteracy, the way that we've been implementing it in the 4 years that I've been here, it is the seal of biliteracy has been, it is part of code in the state of New Jersey as something optional that districts can implement to demonstrate students being biliterate in English, obviously, and in at least one other language. When I first came, we did have, and it was established in 2016. When I first came, we had about 17 students who tested and met the criteria because they have to meet the criteria for reading, writing, speaking, and listening in a foreign language. The second year, it went from 17 up to about 69 or so. So it was an increase. A part of it was just communicating with, and there was a passion for it. There was a buy-in from students, but it's something that we had to give an assessment. So we had to schedule that time. Students had to sign up, register. I had to explain to them, to their parents, and then we had to designate certain times when they could test during the school day. It is about 2 to 3 hours that they're testing to demonstrate that proficiency in four domains: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. So that was fantastic. Thought we were going to have more growth. Then COVID came, and it just everything shifted around. I think in the plan, I forget what the exact number was, like 23, 27, somewhere around that. That met the criteria, and we were able to assess doing it all virtually, which the state of New Jersey, the NJDOE, did make an exception for that year because normally you had to test in person. They made an exception. You know, we figured it out, we made it happen, but we didn't have as many students participate as we had the year before, or that we know that this district has that multilingual part of their identity. And we also know that our students who are in our world languages classes are learning many times a second or a third language. This year, we came across some of the similar type problems, especially because the testing occurred around December. You know, and actually, no, it was in January, which we all know here at the high school, things became a little more complicated in January. But I just got the results and have notified students. We do have, this year, we're up to 30, we got back to 37 students who have demonstrated proficiency in at least one other language. And there were, I want to say about 5 or 6, if I remember correctly, that demonstrated trilingualism. So again, that's being able to speak, read, write, and comprehend oral language in multiple languages. So, and we know that we can do that. And a lot of them were Italian or Spanish, French, Mandarin, and an Arabic speaker. So I do anticipate next year that number increasing. We are going to change the way that we're doing the assessment so that the assessment does occur in our world language classes. This way, it's not a separate or outside event that they have to sign up for and then say, you know what, I'm going to be pulled out of class to take this assessment. So we do anticipate next year that number increasing drastically, especially if you know, life goes a little bit back to normal.
Great. I'm really, excited to hear that. You know, I think that, like I said, and dual language or having multiple languages, being trilingual is a immensely beneficial thing to have, and just to be able to do that. You know, I think that I also want to put emphasis on, while attaining the English language, not to lose their native language. You know, I think that that's been a struggle that I personally have had, where I am literate, biliterate as well. I can read it, write it, speak it, and understand it, you know, but I still have trouble speaking it as fluently as I would speak Spanish or English, I'm sorry. So, you know, I do have times where I stumble on words and things like I consider basic vocabulary, and just not being able to express myself the way that I express myself in English. It just cost me a little bit more struggle to get that in my native language, which is a bit unfortunate. But I keep putting in that effort, and, you know, promoting programs like that, and, you know, pushing our students to, you know, attain that level of proficiency, I think is going to be really beneficial to all students, you know, native English speakers and native, you know, other language speakers. So thank you. Thank you very much for being here, Mr.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I did have another question, because I was curious about if you know the number of students that are bilingual, that are in the advanced placement, gifted and talented, and international baccalaureate. That was one of the.
Yeah, that was one of the questions. I can get you the exact numbers. I don't have.
That's
have them
fine
right now.
Yeah. Do I have any other questions from the board members? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Plata. I think this is wonderful work, and I know it's been a long time coming, and we're pleased with a lot of the work that you've done, since you've been here. This has been something that has been on my mind for many, many years, and I'm really excited that we're getting more engaged with our bilingual community and being able to provide better services to help the students and the families engage more with their students. So thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you. And again, thank you to the board for being as supportive as you have been in the 4 years I've been here. And we are looking to just continue to get better and improve. And obviously with your support and the new interim superintendent, thank you. We're sure we'll continue to progress.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here tonight and answering our questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Plata.
Now I think there's a vote. Yes.
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mr. Rock,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Rothstein,
Yes.
President Tunnicliff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, and now we have the finance section. So we can approve sections A through all the way through up to item number 13. So A and B, and then B through item 13. Do I have a motion to accept the finance report? And
So moved.
thank you, Mr. Stevenson. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rock. Any discussion?
I just wanted to get some clarity for the public. Item number 11, 12, and 13 is not, it's not the public funds, right? I'm sorry. It's
Non-public.
going money through our funds,
pass-through,
but it's just
yeah.
a pass through.
Correct.
Okay.
And I did want to note just on item number 10 that we're having a virtual Cisco Academy instructors for the remainder of the school year because we've had some issues with staffing. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I think we can vote.
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mr. Rock,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Rothstein,
Yes.
President Tunnicliff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and on to our, hang on, just want to make sure I didn't miss something. The reports. So if I have a motion to accept items 1 and 2, excuse me, which are the HIB reports ending today, February 28th, and item number 2, which is the HIB self-assessment score for 2020-2021 school year.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Rock.
Yes, second.
Thank you, Vice President Rothstein. Any discussion? Seeing none, would you kindly take the vote?
Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mr. Rock,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Rothstein,
Yes.
President Tunnicliff.
Yes.
Thank you.
And our final item on the agenda is miscellaneous. And these are the calendars for the school year of 2022-2023. These include the Departments of Buildings and Grounds, the calendar for the Central Office Administrative Personnel, and the district calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the 3 calendars?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. Second?
Second.
That was
Brian.
Mr.
I mean, sorry, Eric.
That was Mr. Stevenson. Thank you. Any discussion on the calendars? Seeing none, would you kindly take the vote?
Just to clarify, we did update the
Yes.
calendar and
Correct. Item attachment 16 has been updated and we've made the corrections.
thank you.
Yes.
Okay, vote please. Mrs. Huerta,
Yes.
Mr. Rock,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Vice President Rothstein,
Yes.
President Tunnicliff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we have petitions and hearings of citizens, and this can be on anything from the agenda or anything outside of the agenda for this evening. You will have 3 minutes. You need to come to the lectern and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll keep my mask on so you can look at my pretty mask. My name is Tez Rorel. My address is 24 Hutton. First, I was watching the meeting from home virtually, and I was very moved with the Black History Month performance. It was quite moving. So I want to say thank you, and it's great to see that presented here. So I appreciate all the effort that went into that. Second, I would like to welcome Dr. Schoen. Congratulations for your appointment as a certified feminist. It's good to see a woman in leadership position. Yes, our board now, it's not balanced anymore, so it's good to see. I would like to call out, as I'm sure you'll meet, in your transition with Dr. Cascone, one of the board and district goals is pre-K expansion. And that is something that the Council of PTAs, I happen to be the president for the Council of PTAs as well, has worked very hard on. There were a lot of pushbacks with challenges of not being enough space and stuff like that. So the Council of PTAs, along with a group of volunteers, worked hard in pushing through those challenges and presenting a solid framework and handed it to our leadership, which I'm grateful for them to have taken over and adopted as a district and board goal. So I ask as a parent, I ask as a PTA leader, also as a real estate professional, because I know it's going to help our community, for you to continue to keep that front and center as your priorities place. I also wish Dr. Cascone the very best in his next adventures. My question on the agenda item is page number 10. Special services. I see an amount for around $110,000 unbudgeted. If someone can just help me explain that, please. Thank you.
Ms. Flowers. We'll wait till, yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Right.
wait, please.
Very good. Mhm.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Mel Julie Valdez. I live at 16 Elm Street. And good evening, board, and thank you, Dr. Cascone, for your all the hard work. I know it wasn't easy, and we welcome you, Dr. Schoen, as our new interim superintendent. So I have a few comments to make. So I did email Dr. Cascone and Michael Cimino, I think is how you say his name. And I'm just following up to get more information about the construction of 2 additional trailers at Washington School. At the last WOCPTA meeting, Ebony DeMendez was presenting information about the preschool expansion program. She stated that 2 additional trailers would be built at Washington School. I asked more about this and she stated that I should follow up with Dr. Cascone and Mr. Cimino. I do have a few concerns about 2 additional trailers being built in the parking area, which is used for students to play outside. Additionally, the place could be used in other ways for our students. And there's currently 2 trailers in the front of that school. I just would like to know if there's any possibility to house these preschool students within another school building instead of a trailer. And I would just appreciate learning more about this project and really how it will affect Washington school students and the staff. And also, I believe there is a repair needed to the retaining wall in the back. So if you can please provide more information about that. Additionally, I want to thank the students who presented. They did an excellent job and I loved it. And I just want to say, Black history is always on the shortest month of the year. And it's not, I say Black history is American history and we really should honor it every day, not just in February. And let me see. And thank you for the update regarding the mask mandate. I understand it was a hard decision to make. And, I think, the way it's being presented is a good way for it to be presented. It's optional and, people who want to wear masks can continue. And I do agree that we do need to be careful, especially once spring break comes around, everybody's going to be traveling and, we just don't want to see a spike in cases. The last thing that I wanted to say is I'm very excited to hear Mr. Plata's presentation about the English language learners. I do think that as a community, West Orange does have a lot of students who are bilingual or trilingual. And, we do need to include them more and just make more of an effort. I myself am bilingual and I'm very proud of that. And I think that that is an asset that has been an asset for me throughout my school career and also my professional career. So, I think that is something that it's great that the district is putting more resources for that. So, all right, my time is up, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Vicki Jenkins. I live at Pleasant Valley Way in West Orange. I'm here tonight first to say thank you to Dr. Cascone for all the work that he has done. Welcome to the community. First, I'm going to start by saying I'm a teacher. So if I'm here concerned and I have to be in the car at 6:30 in the morning, I'm extremely upset. My son is at Edison. He is a 6th grade student, obviously. He has had no ELA teacher the entire year. Dr. Cascone and I have discussed this. Mr. Fitzgerald has been extremely responsive. All I've been hearing is that it's a dynamic situation. As a teacher, I understand union rules. I understand our rights as teachers. So I am completely on board. First marking period, I just let it go. We're all getting back. This has been a difficult year, and I commend administrators, anybody that works in the building, and teachers. That being said, we have to be proactive, not reactive. So I met with Mr. Fitzgerald, my husband and I did, and we had a great meeting. And come December 6th, there was a teacher put in the room. So that's a whole marking period. And the teacher in there was in and out, in and out. There was also a student issue, whatever. Okay, great, we're getting there. With no communication, and here's my problem, the teacher was removed. And it was on the agenda on February 7th, but no parent communication. I emailed Mr. Fitzgerald on the 10th, and he said that he was hoping he didn't have to do it because there was gonna be another teacher put in, yada, yada. I've done the proper channels. I've emailed Dr. Cascone, the ELA supervisor, everybody involved. Now he has another teacher. This is the 4th teacher, And all the other teachers that is covering for this teacher is an Edison ELA teacher, except for my son's. She is a math teacher. She is certified in ELA, but she is a math teacher. Okay. Not saying she's not qualified, but I don't know when the last time she taught ELA. So that concerns me that everybody has been able to follow the curriculum except for my son's class. That also means he doesn't have an advisory teacher. So he is in 6th grade, 4th grade remote, no fault of the district, hybrid, we've all been in the same position, then goes into 6th grade, about to enter junior high with no typical ELA for all that time. I'm done with the dynamic situation. He's going into junior high. He is a wonderful student. He made honor roll. It doesn't matter. They're struggling. That whole class is struggling. And the only reason I know about these changes is because of my son. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Joyce Soto, 16 Prospect Place. I just wanted to say thank you to the district expansion team for all the hard work that they've been doing and for answering the call of the Council of PTAs to go forward with that program. I'm standing here before you today because we did hear some discerning news that 2 trailers would be coming to Washington School. And this is a big concern when you look at the space that we have and the fact that the district has been actively working to remove trailers from all schools. And when we look at the trailers that are still in existence, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Washington School is the only, if not one of a few schools that still have trailers. And now we are looking to put 2 more trailers into this space. And I want to make sure that as we continue, and thank you, Mr. Rock, for mentioning the fact that we are looking for space to house these students. But I want to make sure that we are actively making sure that those trailers do not come to the school because it would greatly impact the lives of the students that are there now as far as their space that they have to play and to get out and things of that nature. And I refer back to the letter that we received back in February, the beginning of February 4th, where it said that we would be looking for new spaces, not looking to use the current spaces that we have. So I just implore the board to keep looking for new spaces that can accommodate not just the expansion that we hopefully will get when we get that funding and that award, but where we can put all of those children together or accommodate them accurately.
Thank you. Was that the mic? It's a great. We've had a lot of action today.
Good evening. Adam Kramer, 20 Moran Road, West Orange. I stand before you tonight as a concerned citizen who wants two things: great educational opportunities for everybody in the community and reasonable taxation for everybody in the community so we can stay here. I'll talk about the taxation side first. Whether you know it or not, you tax at 2.6% of the value of the house. That's the highest in Essex County. The next closest is Glen Ridge, 2%. I've scoured the databases of the state and nation for a district that taxes more than 2.6% of the value of the house. Couldn't find one. So I have reason to believe you're number one. It's not a good thing to be number one on that. I hope I'm wrong. I hope somebody somewhere finds a district that has a higher tax levy rate and we don't have that dubious distinction. Your spending is about 130% of the state average on a per pupil basis at over 26,000 per year. I do that by simply taking school districts and looking at total spending, divide by enrollment, basic math. And you're about double the national average. So on that side, the evidence is indisputable. This is an expensive school district that taxes heavily. You just can't argue it. It is what it is. On the, are we giving every student an opportunity? The data is mixed. You do some very good things. Your spec ed program's great. Your art's great. The efforts you make at diversity are great. But when you scour the databases of the DOE, the school rankings, you need improvement in graduation rates, STEM performance, standardized tests. Now you can dismiss those metrics and say, well, it doesn't matter. Well, that in my mind would be equivalent to saying we have an obesity epidemic in the United States. Let's get rid of measures of body mass index and scales. They matter and you have to pay attention to them. It needs work. I have an answer to this conundrum, and this has to be solved, and you can't solve it by spending more money because there is no money tree in Washington, Trenton, or West Orange. My answer is school choice. Even if you think your child gets a good education here, what if I gave you $20,000 as a high school student, 15 as a grammar school student, 30,000 or up as a spec ed student, more if diagnosis needed? Could we do better? Something to think about. And, you know, if you think that I'm just this, you know, crazy libertarian, I ran on this for state senate against former Governor Cody. As a school choice advocate, I got 37%. So I'm not the only one thinking this.
Thank you. Do we have anything from the Google form?
Yes, we do. President
Thank you.
Tunnicliffe. The first submission is from Ms. Rachel Keene to the members of the board, Dr. Cascone, and incoming interim superintendent, Dr. Schoen. I would first like to welcome Dr. Schoen to our district. We are excited to have you here and hope the transition goes smoothly. I have been a vocal proponent of reopening our schools last year and now making masks optional, and I am not a minority in West Orange. I have a 5-year-old who attends kindergarten at a private school this year, who will hopefully be at Redwood in the fall. When I told him that he no longer has to wear a mask, he asked me if this meant that coronavirus is over. I told him that the coronavirus, like other respiratory viruses, will probably be with us forever, but that it is manageable and something with which we can live. He then asked me if this means he can smooch his teacher's face. I told him no, he can't. My 5-year-old doesn't remember life before masks and coronavirus, but I have done everything in my power to preserve normalcy and fun in his life and the life of his 2-year-old brother. I did this because I learned very early on that COVID-19 presented extremely low risk to them, and because I knew that they needed socialization, exercise, and joy. My 2-year-old has asthma and brings home every virus under the sun, but I know from my 5-year-old that this is just a normal part of life with kids in school and childcare. Now that we have widely available vaccines, readily available frontline treatments, and so much more information at our disposal about this virus, it is time for us to move forward and live our lives. I know too many people who have lived their lives in paralyzing fear for 2 years, only to get COVID-19 anyway. What was the point of all of that lost time? And what did more damage, the virus or the years of life on hold? As we move forward into mask optional life in schools, I also ask you to consider something we talk about all the time: equity. Of the hundreds of districts in New Jersey, the following have mandated masks: Newark, Patterson, Camden, Trenton, Hillside, Atlantic City, Camden, Elizabeth, East Orange, Piscataway, and Plainfield City. These districts have some of the highest poverty rates in the state, but upon further inspection, not necessarily the lowest vaccination rates. So what is the justification for this? Why are people in these communities being taken advantage of like this? Why can white wealthy kids in Livingston take their mask off and see their speech therapist faces when autistic 3-year-olds in Newark can't? Do universally worn cloth Old Navy masks even prevent the spread of COVID-19? Or is it better to boost high-risk populations, provide KN95 masks to the highest risk among us, and stay home when we are sick? So please, let's work toward a full return to normalcy for our kids who've needlessly sacrificed so much of their childhoods for the adults and who deserve life without COVID-19 restrictions. No more COVID-19 notification letters, contact tracing, quarantines of healthy kids, and universally mandated masks. Thank you. Our second submission is from F. Chan Jarvis, West Orange. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of United Asian Voices of West Orange, I'd like to once again thank Dr. Cascone and the board for your enthusiastic support of the recent Lunar New Year celebration. Thank you especially to Board President Tunnicliffe and Board Member Ms. Huerta for joining us that evening and staying to chat with UAV members. The event was a successful collaboration between UAV, the BOE, the World Languages Department, the Chinese language teachers across the district, and their student performers. The evening brought out over 150 members of the West Orange community. And even before the night was over, parents and kids alike were asking us about next year's celebration. Tonight, I'm submitting a request for the BOE to formally adopt the newly passed mandate that requires Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders be included in New Jersey's statewide school curriculum. As you know, Governor Murphy signed Bill S4021 into law last month, ensuring that the contributions, history, and the heritage of AAPIs are included in the New Jersey Student Learning Standards for Social Studies. The mandate for K-12 students goes into effect this September. Thus, we urge you to take immediate steps to adopt this mandate and develop a curriculum inclusive of AAPIs for full implementation. We invite you to also review the educational resources with turnkey curriculum lessons, which we've previously shared. Please allow me to restate why adherence to the curriculum mandate is important. By expanding the K-12 curriculum to include Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, the West Orange School District will be correcting the omission of AAPI stories and histories in the classrooms. Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have been an integral part of America for hundreds of years. All students should be taught that AAPI voices, experiences, and stories do in fact matter and are absolutely worth learning and studying. When West Orange students study American heroes and leaders, AAPI trailblazers and civil rights leaders like Yuri Kochiyama, Grace Lee Boggs, Larry Italong, Mabel Ping Hoi Lee, Dilip Singh Saud, and countless other, and forgive me if I pronounce those names incorrectly, and countless other heroes should be an equal part of the syllabi and classroom discussions. When West Orange students learn key moments in American history, they should also be taught that America was built and expanded thanks in part to early Asian merchants, tradespeople, farm laborers, and railroad workers who later settled in these lands. Also, in West Orange K-12 ELA classes and libraries, picture books, chapter books, novels, plays, poems, memoirs, and history textbooks, of which there are hundreds, should be made widely available to students. Visibly and representation matters, and students need to learn a full and accurate picture of America. They need to see themselves and their neighbors reflected in their books, lessons, and schools. In addition to formally adopting and implementing the AAPI curriculum mandate, United Asian Voices of West Orange also urges the West Orange Board of Education to align the district's curriculum to the New Jersey Amistad Mandate, Holocaust Genocide Education Mandate, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Mandate, the Peoples with Disabilities and LGBT Mandate, the Climate Change Mandate. United Asian Voices of West Orange is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We believe in a strong West Orange school district and in supporting West Orange educators. We look forward to working with the BOE and stakeholders to expand and execute curriculum, policies, and programs that support our shared vision. Thank you for your attention and support. Next, we have Miss Anna Becker, 127 Old Short Hills Road, Apartment 1. I express a great concern regarding a dire lack of communication, updates, and notices in due time from the Transportation Department. Last Friday, my child waited for the school bus for 40 minutes under the freezing rain, and no messages came from transportation regarding such delays with buses. It has to be improved. And lastly, from Ms. Sandra Mordecai, 516 Pleasant Valley Way. When will there be an update of the Mountaineer Academy and how many students are in there set to graduate on time? In addition, the demographics of the students there. Thank you. And that completes the comments and questions from the Google document.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You want to?
Okay. By all means. I'm
Lobbing
happy-
to you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm happy to start. And of course, President Cliff, if you felt there were, if I miss anything, or certainly if there were items on which you wanted to add texture from the board's perspective,
Sure.
but happy to start. First off, thank you so much to members of the community for staying with us at this late hour and coming. We've been lonely, haven't we? We haven't really many
Very
folks come
lonely.
out, so we appreciate it. And no, genuinely, and thank you. Mr. Roro, Ms. Soto, thank you for your advocacy, which was critical in really moving the district forward. Really was the impetus really for us moving forward with this initiative for the preschool expansion. And indeed, Mr. Mendez and Mrs. Hanratty are sort of co-chairing that committee, but obviously I've stayed apprised of the progress. So to speak specifically about the trailers and sort of the thought process behind this. In order to be eligible to apply for the preschool expansion grant, the district is obliged to convert all of its current, and I'm sure Mr. Mendez maybe shared this, but I'll reiterate for the public and board as well. The district is obliged to take all of its existing preschool classes and make them full day. Presently, the only preschool classes that we offer in the district are part of the the preschool disabled, and there are some inclusion sections within that program. We're seeing tremendous growth within that program. And we have outgrown the Betty Madalena Early Learning Center based at the Life Christian Church. That pre-pandemic necessitated that we create additional sections for that program, which are housed at Washington School. And in fact, we're utilizing the pre-existing trailers at Washington School for those overflow of classes. So whatever facility we would use to house that Betty Madalena Early Learning Center program would need to be able to accommodate all of those sections. If we were to find a separate space, it would have to include all those sections. If we were to, and the reality of it is that our schools are full. We have very few, if any, available classrooms in our schools where we could incorporate those sections into those schools. And even if we could say catch as catch can, find an open classroom at this school, an open classroom at that school, what we would have is we'd have a preschool disabled program, and that was now sort of scattered to the four winds amongst 6 or 7, 4 to 5 different sites. And so in the short term, the rationale was to for the short term to have that program at least housed just at Betty Madalena and just at Washington School, which is the purpose for why we moved the trailers there. If we currently had overflowed, if we had trailers at another school and we'd overflowed Betty to that school, then we'd be looking at putting the trailers there. So it's really just a function of the fact that Washington had the space for us to overflow and is there. In terms of I can tell you that in our most recent meetings about this, the logistic piece of how those trailers would impact on the existing recess space was at the top of the agenda discussion. And I can tell you that we're working with our architects of record to identify ways in which we can utilize other space and maybe even do some enhancements, enclosure and things of that nature, so that we can have an appropriate and adequately sized space for kids to play at Washington School. So that is absolutely part of the conversation. And what I would suggest, and we absolutely want parents to be a part of that conversation. So whether that's engaging with Ms. DeMeo or whether that's at the next preschool meeting, asking for an update, I'll make sure I mention that to Mr. Mendez so that we have an update at the next preschool meeting as to what the prospective plan is for a play area there. The retaining wall. So I do have a bit of an update on the retaining wall. So it had been several years since the architects and engineers had gone out to look at that wall, and it was part of the original referendum proposal that was done prior to when I got here. I asked our director of buildings and grounds to have the architects go back out and take a look at it to get a current look at that wall. And their assessment was that we needed to move on that wall sooner rather than later and get that wall done sooner rather than later. Fortunately, we've been carrying money over into our reserve accounts, and we do have adequate funding within our capital reserve account to do that wall project. And so we are moving forward with the initial steps to that, to first understand the legal implications, notification to residents, and a host of other steps that would come with beginning that project. But that project will be completed outside of a referendum and within the next year. I would imagine that ground will be broken on that project. Most likely, we're ascertaining whether it could be safely done while school is in session or whether it would need to be done over the summer, but it will be done sooner rather than later. I know, Soror, you had a question about this, the special education tuition. Just for a clarification on which item that was on the agenda, because there's $100,000 item, but that looks like it was a tuition readjustment or something of that nature. Right, there's a number of items that are reflected as unbudgeted, so I just want to clarify which one I'm speaking to. Oh, okay, so a cumulative amount of 4. So the 4 separate unbudgeted items, okay. So these are, without going into detail as to the individual student cases, when you see these items, they're typically one of two things. It's either a new family that's moved in and transferred into the district that came from a special education program, and now, that they were not originally on our rolls as special education students, or they're a student that's in an existing program in the district and has been determined through the child study team to require a more specialized educational environment. So that's typically when you see those unbudgeted. Ms. Flowers, do you want to speak a little bit to the sort of the fiscal management piece there, IDEA and things of that nature? How, because you're probably thinking to yourself, how do we sustain those kinds of unbudgeted items within the LEA? So Ms. Flowers?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Cascone. So yes, to your point, when we have these particular situations, we do have a means through the DEA funding that we get to the district where we're able to charge these type of tuition programs for these students. And also in the event that we don't have enough funding through the IDEA, we do have budgeted lines through tuition for special ed that we can charge these, because we sometimes have kids that were budgeted that move out. So we realize that a savings there, so that we have money there for students that move in and then have to be placed outside of district. So we track the spending for these situations very closely and make any adjustments where needed.
Okay, what else do we have? Okay, so Ms. Jenkins, thank you. Oh, and Ms. Valdez, is Ms. Valdez still here or did she leave? Okay. I just wanted to apologize because I had yet to respond to her email. So, with regard to Ms. Jenkins and Edison School, and yes, Ms. Jenkins and I have had some communications, and I certainly understand her concern, and it has been a challenging situation to address. As it has been sort of, and it has been sort of a dynamic leave situation whereby the timelines for the return of the staff member are adjusted. And as such, it's required us to sort of pivot. But there are a couple things I heard in your comments, Ms. Jenkins, which absolutely merit additional follow-up. Obviously dismayed to hear that the communication has been absent. Certainly, while we can't necessarily control those pivots and those transition points, what we can control is that we're consistently communicating and being transparent and proactive with the parents. So I will follow up with Mr. Fitzgerald and Ms. Veneciano to understand how we can do that better. Insofar as I'm glad to hear your son made honor roll. That's a great achievement. I think what I was speaking to in my email is, regardless of how we might be addressing the instructional situation, the district has a responsibility to ensure that the level of instruction is adequate, at least satisfactory, and that the teacher in the school understands for each student the extent to which the sense, or maybe even the knowledge, the parental knowledge that your child is not performing at the level they should be, that's borne out in the data. And if so, what are the specific areas in which your child has fallen behind? The school district, the school, the department, the teacher should be providing feedback to parents on, this is what we've identified. These are the skills we've identified that are lagging. It may be better than you think. It may be as bad as you think. It may be worse, but in any case, we should be able to provide you with a clear indication of what that is and what we're doing to remediate it, regardless of who may be in the classroom. That is an expectation you should have as a parent. And as such, I will make sure that I follow up that the teacher is providing feedback, clear feedback to students and parents as to where their kids are, in particular with language arts literacy skills. We have a number of months left in the school year. We have summer programming that we're putting in place to ensure that if there are gaps, they're as closed as much as possible before your son enters into middle school. So I will be sure to follow up on both those points with Mr. Fitzgerald and Ms. Veneciano. Relative to Ms. Keene's reflections and thoughts, The phrase that jumped out for me was, we need to work towards normalcy. And I would argue that's what we're doing, right? I would say that, in light of the most recent announcement tonight, that's the direction we're moving, but we're doing it. We're doing it not guided by politics. We are doing it to the best of our ability, guided by the public health and medical experts. And we're doing it in a way that honors the diverse views of our community on this. And what the survey data showed us, regardless of the stakeholder group, though it's skewed differently depending upon the group, was that our community is largely split on the matter. Whether you ask students or parents, or teachers, it's largely a sort of a 50-50 type view on it. And so I would argue that the approach we've taken sort of honors that diversity of opinion, while also placing a critical eye. I think, we would all agree with Ms. Keene that it's been a tough couple of years, and we all obviously want to move forward, as quickly and as carefully as possible. To Ms. Jan Jarvis, we appreciate you, and we appreciate United Asian Voices and your advocacy. I mean, Mr. Plata, who's here, and his teachers and department were instrumental in the Lunar New Year celebration, and we look forward to continuing that work. What I would volunteer is that really over the course of the last 2 years, whether it was AAPI, LGBTQIA, Black history, climate change, our curricular team has remained abreast of those emerging mandates. And I think we've really made some outstanding progress in that area. And what I was going to suggest, President Tunnicliffe, and I know we've had multiple presentations over the last couple of years on diversity, on our status with the Amistad implementation. I think it would be constructive for the curriculum, for a really specifically a curricular presentation in the next several months that provides the committee with an update on all the work that's ongoing in these areas. Because I would hate the community to walk away tonight and feel as if we've been sort of sitting on our hands as far as these things goes, because that's very far from the truth. And in fact, there's been a lot of progress made in all these areas, and the district is on target in terms of being in compliance with the mandates, and really in many ways going beyond that. So something for future consideration after my departure. Transportation, all I can say to the parent is that, we do genuinely apologize for that. We certainly, it's obviously never our intention to have a poor kid standing out in the cold rain, waiting for a bus. And we can always do better with communication, and I will follow up and see what else we can do in that regard. I will tell you, on that particular day and many days, our entire transportation management staff has actually been operating buses. Our director, our dispatcher have been actually been behind the wheel driving buses because of the shortage. And even with them driving buses, there have been days where we have not had adequate staffing. It's better now than it was in January, but it still remains a challenge. And I would suggest that that's probably why that happened, is that the director who would typically send those communications out was actually operating a bus. That being said, we should have some sort of a communication contingency plan in the event that occurs, and the building principals would certainly be appropriate folks who could do that. So I will make sure that we follow up and improve upon our backup plan for communication, so we can, to the best extent possible, prevent that. And I think the obviously, Mr. Kramer. I'm sorry, was it?
I was going to say, Ms. Mordecai's question about the Mountaineer Academy.
Yes. Yes, it's true. We have been talking some time about having Mr. Moore and Mr. Grant coming to present an update. And certainly, if that were, if the board were interested in seeing a presentation on that, I know they're proud of the work that they're doing over there, and we can certainly, queue something up for later in the spring for them to come and present. Alternatively, we could just request an update in a report that could be presented as part of a superintendent report with that data. But we've made note of that. And as far as Mr. Kramer's comments go. Obviously, we appreciate your input, and you speak a lot of truth. No question, fiscal truth. I don't know if the board wanted to. Obviously, it's timely and in advance as we move forward with the budget this year. I don't know if the board had anything they wanted to say with regard to Mr. Kramer's comments.
We do appreciate your continued advocacy for the tax burden of our community. We're all taxpayers here as well, and it's a tough. The budget season is tough, and we realize we have a lot of work to do, and it's coming up. We're going to have a lot of discussions. We're still waiting, as you've heard from Ms. Huerta earlier, that we're still waiting from our funding from the state. So we don't know what that is yet. So hopefully we do have a budget workshop coming up on Thursday this week, 7 p.m. right?
Yes.
Here?
Here.
Yes. So so we look forward to hearing from our community more, and we will, keep everybody apprised as we go through the process as to where we're at, and what things we want to hear from you of what's important to you in our district. We really need to know that. We need to know from the community. We have some hard decisions we might be having to make this year that, we take it very seriously because we don't want to ruin what we have, because we think we have some really great things going on, but we also need to look at where can we be, where can we make those cuts, but we need your input for that. So I hope that the community does come out for our budget workshops. We'll probably have to schedule another one. We were talking about that, and Ms. Flowers will get an announcement out shortly about one that'll come towards the end of March, once we get the data from the numbers from the state. So, we want to hear from you. Stay engaged. Let us know how you feel. We understand this is a tough time for everybody. We realize our taxes are high, but we're also really proud of what we have. And I don't think we want to destroy that. So it's a fine balance between the two. But, I hope to see future engagement from everyone in our community on it as we go through this. And I did want to make a note that Dr. Cascone and I had been talking about scheduling presentations so that the people in the community, I know everybody wants to know when this presentation, so we would like to actually standardize that so that annually the community can rely on, okay, there's going to be a math curriculum presentation, there'll be a social studies curriculum presentation, and this month we're going to have our, the Mountaineer program will be presented, so that it will be on a calendar on the website. So this way everyone can look at it and know which things, when you have something that's important to you, you can look and see, okay, the board's getting a presentation on this coming up soon. So I think those are some of the things that we're working on, trying to standardize across our district to create more transparencies and to provide information for people when they're looking for it, that they have a place to go to get it. So a couple of things that our board is working on. So thank you. And I think with that, any other comments from the board? Oh, yes, general board reports. So why don't we start with Mr. Stevenson down there?
Thank you, President Tunnicliffe. And I just wanted to say, as the legislature has passed February 28th being the Amistad Day, I want to acknowledge the work of former Assemblyman Bill Payne of the 29th Legislative District in New Jersey on his work to bring that legislation to passage and the establishment of the Amistad Commission. So thank you, former Assemblyman Payne, and thank again those young people who performed tonight as we conclude Black History Month. And to Ms. Valdez's point, we should celebrate accomplishments of all Americans, and particularly Black history throughout the year. So thank you.
First, just wanted to echo the other comments about the performances tonight. They were amazing. And as well as the student liaisons mentioned some of our sports accomplishments by our students. And it's nice to remember that we do a lot of great things here, both arts and sports. But I wanted to especially touch on the comments about the API curriculum. So I would love to see a presentation about all of our efforts kind of at the high level of how we're trying to build a more inclusive curriculum. But on that note specifically, I just want to make one amendment to our legislative report, because we did include the mention of Amistad Day. The Assembly passed that joint resolution today that would have designated today as Amistad Day, and it's particularly relevant because it's today. But there was another joint resolution the Assembly passed that would recognize January 30th as Fred Korematsu Day. If you're not familiar with Fred Korematsu, he was a American citizen of Japanese descent, was born in California back in the early 20th century. And he was one of a series of civil rights activists that stood up to the way the federal government mistreated Japanese Americans throughout the period around World War II. In particular, after the bombings at Pearl Harbor, the federal government took or passed the Exclusion Act and removed people of Japanese descent from their homes, put them in internment camps, and Fred Korematsu chose to resist that. He was eventually arrested. He went to court, and with the assistance of the American Civil Liberties Union, went to the Supreme Court to try to overturn that. And in a shameful decision, they decided that it was justified and okay. And it wasn't for another 40 years before the courts finally vacated his conviction for being outside of the exclusion zone. And he went on for the rest of his life to be a civil rights activist and to stand up for the mistreatment of people by the federal government in various circumstances. Notably, much later, after 9/11, he wrote amicus briefs when the federal government was mistreating people of Arab descent and Muslims throughout the United States in the context of post 9/11 America. So in light of the conversation around the API curriculum, just a short little history lesson about one of a civil rights activist that may be less well known. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's great having a history teacher on the board. Ms. Huerta.
Thank you, President Sutton-Cliff. Just wanted to echo the wonderful, reviews of the Jubilee Choir. I was just saying to Ms. Tunnicliffe that I feel like I can't hold back tears every time that I hear the soloist. And I forget his name every time, but he's wonderful, magnificent. He does the Star Spangled Banner at some of the sporting events. He's on the football team. He was, he's really great. His voice is so powerful. President Tunnicliffe and I were able to celebrate the Lunar New Year together at the high school, and that was a beautiful event as well. I missed the dance competition or the dance show last week. Was it this week? Last week, right?
Yeah, last Thursday.
Yes, I was upset that I missed it. But I was able to attend the African American read-in here at the LMC at was it Thursday or Wednesday? I'm terrible with dates, so I would not be a good history teacher. So, but I was able to puzzle around over there at the they call it the makerspace, and Mr. Moore dropped in and said hello to me, and I was able to do a little bit of the spoken word. I don't know, somebody recorded me, but I didn't have it, and I hope it doesn't come up anywhere. But I was able to, pick out Mrs. Julie Matz, put that effort together, and she had so many great topics that I won't try to imitate what she said and what she taught, but I felt like I was a high school kid again, and just really enjoying that presentation and feeling like I was in class. I did want to highlight some events that are coming up. AP Art Show is March 19th from 1 to 4 at the West Orange Arts Council. Spring Musical Into the Woods will be April 8th, 9th, and 10th. Choral Spring Concert will be May 5th. Orchestra Spring Concert, May 12th. Band String Concert, May 19th. And Music Award Nights, May 23rd. Along with all of the sports and all of the other activities that go on within our school district, I do want to make sure that we highlight the arts. And I love watching the kids perform, it's really magnificent. I don't think that they realize the talent that they have when they go out into the real world and realize that they are already doing the great things that they want to be doing right here in West Orange. So if you get a chance to participate in any of those activities, share your pictures. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vice President Rothstein.
Just wanted to say I've been, like many of us, watching with a great deal of concern the news from Russia and Ukraine. as we're witnessing one country attempt to take over and take democracy away from another country. There are a few things more concerning going on right now. I'm a very strong believer that there is nothing that guarantees our democracy and freedom in the United States more than strong public education. And it's a real privilege and honor to live in a country where we have this system and this opportunity. So grateful for the opportunity to serve here with all of you and help protect public education. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And on that note, I think we can close our meeting. The next board meeting, regular board meeting will be held at 7:30 PM on Monday, March 14th, 2022, right here in the LMC in the West Orange High School. And that will be sadly Dr. Cascone's last board meeting with us.
Sad indeed.
And as I mentioned before, we have a budget workshop this Thursday, 7 o'clock, right here, West Orange High School, on March 3rd, correct? Thursday, March 3rd. So please join us for that this week. And the meeting is now adjourned and there will be no personal, legal, or miscellaneous confidential matters discussed after this.
Motion.
And, oh, I always forget.
Speaking of
I motion-
democracy.
So moved.
All right, let's not go there. So, do I have a motion? I got really excited about hitting my gavel. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is now adjourned.